There are things I fail at, but never sex, she purred. Before we talk? He asked, hesitation written across his face. Talk. There's nothing to be gained otherwise. No. She furrowed her brows. He knew even less about this arrangement than she had when she first started. This wasn't usually how things worked. She narrowed her eyes and said, "You don't seem resolute." "Well, you have an effect on me. There's no denying that. Take me." For a moment, Mango looked like he wanted to stick his tongue in her mouth, her belly button, and in her. But then the craving withered away, his uncertainty returning. "Your comfort is my priority." Her voice was soft, unintrusive, as soothing as lapping waves. "Anytime you're ready." He scrubbed his face. "I could take you," she suggested. "How do you like it?" She ran her hands down her body as she gazed at him, playing an all-too-familiar role. He approached her almost robotically and covered her up with a scarlet couch throw. "You're making it difficult for me to maintain my train of thought." "It's my job. I'm out of practice," he explained. "I thought this would help me get over." "Your wife?" She fought the urge to commiserate. He retreated. "She's dead." The sexual charge in the room dissipated near instantaneously. "Oh, sorry." She saw the heartbreak, felt it. She almost belted. "Finally, you've been dropped off in this cold, desolate hellscape too. But that would suck a lot of the oxygen out of the room." Money consoled Gigi, and perhaps the heat between her legs would comfort him. She was a wonder. Gigi looked up at him and said, "I'm sure." Mango's words tumbled out in a rush, almost frantic in his effort to get them out. "She wouldn't have appreciated me being here." He backed away, but his angled head and eyes examined her whole, barely bundled body. "Are you married?" "I can't," her internal pandemonium cried. "I simply can't." "Watch yourself," she cautioned, a frown crossing her face. "I don't have the patience or the time," she sobbed inwardly. He shook his head, turning away slightly. "I chose well. I chose the best, but she died." There was a heavy pause. His face drained of color, powerless to deal with his past, and all she could do was watch in silence. It lasted only a fraction of a second. Then his attention returned to her. "You're the only woman who can understand me," he stated with conviction. On his part, he felt some undeniable, unmistakable bond with her. He wanted her to be a pillar in his new life, and to be an essential presence in hers. It seemed like a very sudden leap, but she knew grief could remind a person of how limited their time was. Gigi lifted her head slowly and spoke. "Do you think you'll ever find your footing?" Gigi's question, more than his admission, disarmed them both. "You've lost someone," he said, surprise washing over his features. "Who hasn't?" she asked softly, her internal temperature rising. "I think of who I was with her, and I keep trying to get back to that person, but I can't seem to do it." Silently, he begged for her to understand. She didn't expect to remember an abysmal period in her personal history tonight, but she did. "A piece of us died with them. That's just how it is, how it has to be. We're just two people stranded on an island, trying to..." Redated. Her eyes hardened. A simple release of tension. Practical, straightforward. "Connect," he responded. Now he looked like a man who had just buried his wife. Not thinking of the relationship herself, she replied, "Find a girlfriend. Don't let me have my way with you, or I'm going to have my way with you." She saw the delicateness in him. The wolf in her wanted to take him for every dollar he had, but the part of her that had been through losing a spouse could never do that. She had to be perfectly clear. "You have access to my body for the allotted time, nothing else." If she was still here, his eyes were red-rimmed. "I'd tell my wife all the cliché things that people say," he prompted. "What would you say?" She swallowed, unnerved that she had to strain to pull up Domingo's face in her mind. He knew how I felt. I'm sure he did. Besides her daughter, the young love between her and Domingo that she experienced was the purest feeling she'd ever known. "When we first met, I thought I was incapable of loving him. I'd never had so much as a crush on anyone, so I thought I wouldn't be able to love." Now she poured herself a drink and turned to him with the glass in her hand. "I've never admitted that to anyone before." Her words were melted ice. Even still, Mango didn't stand a chance against the very disciplined Redacted. Ever the consummate professional, Gigi now knew that Mango and she were building a strange rapport, a saddened intimacy. I'd always regretted not giving my husband a proper burial. When did you lose him? The image of Domingo's blood on her newly pregnant belly invaded her thoughts. If you don't mind, I'd like to keep the focus on you. She couldn't recall the face of the love of her freaking life. Gigi felt her chest constrict. He was slipping through her fingers, but she couldn't mourn that now. She had to work. It was what the living did. They found a way to move on. She hugged the scarlet throat to her chest. Gigi should have just replaced him right there and then, but she didn't. Mango stared out into space for a while as if searching for a place within himself to hide his stifled fear. How's this for foreplay? I can handle foreplay. I can handle everything, she returned, seamlessly slipping back into character.